In a shocking courtroom case, a mother named Miss Morales stands before the judge after being charged with theft for the sixth time. But this case is far more serious than her previous ones. Authorities say she was involved in a shoplifting incident where more than $500 worth of merchandise was taken from a retail store. What makes the situation even more disturbing is that a 5-year-old child was used during the theft, pushing a shopping cart full of stolen items out of the store. When the case is presented in court, prosecutors quickly point out Ms. Morales' long history of theft offenses. With 5 previous charges already on her record, they argue that this is not a one-time mistake, but a repeated pattern of criminal behavior. Because of this history and the involvement of a young child, the prosecution requests a 1-year sentence in a state jail facility. The defense, however, asks the judge for probation instead of jail time. They attempt to show that Ms. Morales deserves another chance and even present a letter written by her daughter in support of her. The defense hopes this emotional appeal will convince the judge to show some leniency. But the judge isn't easily persuaded. During the hearing, the judge begins asking Ms. Morales direct questions about what happened and why a young child was involved in the incident. The courtroom grows tense as her answers appear inconsistent and unclear. At times, she tries to shift blame and minimize her responsibility, which only seems to increase the judge's frustration. The judge then points out the most troubling part of the case, involving a 5-year-old child in criminal activity. The judge explains that children are meant to be protected and guided, not used as part of a theft. Allowing a child to unknowingly participate in a crime sends a dangerous message and makes the offense far more serious. As the hearing continues, it becomes clear that the judge is deeply concerned about Ms. Morales' repeated behavior. With multiple theft charges already on record and little sign of genuine remorse, the judge questions whether probation would actually change anything. In the end, the judge delivers the final decision. Ms. Morales is found guilty and sentenced to 1 year in a state jail facility. The judge makes it clear that the involvement of a child played a major role in the sentencing decision. The case serves as a powerful reminder that repeated crimes, and especially bringing a child into criminal activity, can lead to serious consequences in court.
You see the theft case applied for probation. There's one letter of support I would like to submit support from her daughter.
Okay. All right. Who is the prosecutor on this case? Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Jason Garahan, Your Honor.
Defense?
Glenn Payne for defense.
And are you Miss Morales?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You entered a plea on August 14th. You entered a plea of guilty, applied for deferred adjudication. The state is asking that your punishment be assessed at 1 year in the state jail facility. They're remaining silent on your recommendations, and they're taking certain cases into consideration. Have both parties had a chance to review the PSI report?
Yeah, there actually wasn't a PSI created in this court. You asked to reset. We asked for the PSI to get the letter, then you just wanted to see the criminal history.
Yes. So is there criminal history available for the court? All right. The court has reviewed the criminal history. Defense, do you have any witnesses?
Judge, no witnesses. Like I said, we just have one support letter on behalf of Ms. Morales. It's her daughter, stating how she helped, that Ms. Morales helps take care of children, and she was working as a home health care, also supplied money for the family. We're going to ask that the court grant her probation in this case, and let her continue support of her family.
All right, Ms. Morales, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, why are you stealing?
That was a bad choice. I wasn't thinking.
Why are you involving a child in theft? Because it says that this was the MO, go to the store, put things in a cart, and then have a child push the cart outside. So you're basically unwittingly making a child a criminal. Why are you doing that? Your attorney was not there, so he can't answer this question. You did it. You took a child in Target, or as we say, Target. You took a child there, loaded things in a basket, And for that child to know to just push that cart towards all points of sale tells me that somebody told that child, this is what's going to go down. We're going to go in, we're going to put items in this cart, and you just keep pushing it. So why?
I have no words for that.
Yes. And how old was the child that you all involved in your criminal activity who now thinks it's okay to engage in criminal activity?
5 years old.
All right. So you took a 5-year-old. And what day of the week was this? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, what day?
I'm not sure.
All right. Was it a school day?
No, I'm not too sure.
All right. So you take this 5-year-old, walk me through it. So the 5-year-old is pushing the cart out, and obviously police are called, right?
Right.
And did they speak to the 5-year-old? What is the 5-year-old thinking? Do you know? I know somebody will probably object to speculation, but I just want to know, what was the 5-year-old doing when police are there? I'm assuming you all were placed in handcuffs.
I was already in the car. It was with his mother.
Mhm. All right. So it was you and his mother who was stealing. Is that what you're saying?
We were already out and the mom told him to leave it there and he did it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Somebody else helped the little boy push it out.
All right. So someone helped the little boy push the cart out after you all were committing a theft from Target. And what items were you all taking?
It was stuff for the kids.
No. Don't put this on the children. What items were you taking?
Toys.
And what else?
It was clothing.
So you're teaching children that in order to get things, they should steal. That's what you're teaching. And you left out to the tune of $553.69 that you were taking out. So how full was the cart that you were taking out?
It was full.
All right. And then now I've received this letter where you took a child to help you steal, and somebody is saying that you're taking care of children and you're a home health care provider. I don't allow people in this courtroom who are on probation to be home health care providers. And who are you providing health to? Is this a relative?
No.
Right. So I don't know how you're able to take care of children and be a home health care provider.
Those are my kids that I take care of.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you're a good candidate for probation because it appears that your background is littered with theft cases and you're here on a theft enhanced. And how old are you?
43.
I mean, you're old enough to know better. It's not like you're 20 or you're 19 and you have peer pressure. So again, tell me, why are you stealing? It says here that you have a job, that you can pay for things. I don't understand the stealing.
Your Honor, but that doesn't excuse for it.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't have a job at that time, but that doesn't excuse for it.
And it certainly doesn't excuse involving a 5-year-old in your criminal activity. So again, why should I give you probation? The state is silent. Why should I give you probation?
Because I got to take care of my kids. There's no fathers involved for my children.
Well, when you were using the 5-year-old to steal items, were you thinking about, who's going to take care of my children if I am at the Bexar County Jail? Were you thinking about that?
No, Your Honor.
And if something would have ended up happening, sometimes when people go to places and they steal, sometimes people end up getting shot. If that 5-year-old would have been shot, you know what would have ended up happening? You would have been on somebody's news, boo-hooing and crying about how it's unfair that your child was shot. So what am I supposed to do about this? You won't stop stealing.
I will, Your Honor.
No, did you say that to the last judge, that you were going to stop stealing? How many times in your lifetime on this planet as a 41-year-old have you had criminal cases for stealing? Now, mind you, name them all because I've read the report.
Like I believe 5 cases.
And you have not learned anything from that. What you've learned, obviously, is to continue to steal and start this idea where you take a child in with you, you put items in a cart, and you just have them pushing it out. In my mind, I can imagine this 5-year-old, because when you see children pushing carts, they're not even old enough to stand and look over the cart. They're just struggling, barely pushing it. And I'm always thinking to myself, why doesn't a parent help that child push their cart?
Your Honor, we told him to leave it there and he continued pushing it out. That's when the other 2 people helped him.
Oh, so now you're saying
Yeah, that's what we did.
you did not include him in your criminal enterprise
We told him to leave it there and the other 2 people, random people, helped him.
theft case. You were not intending to have him steal. Is that what you're telling the court?
That's what happened.
No. Are you telling the court that this was not a criminal enterprise, that you or somebody loaded a cart at Target with items, the 5-year-old was pushing it, and you're continuing putting items in a cart totaling over $500, and then as he's pushing the cart past points of sale, you're telling him, oh, just leave that there. Maybe you're telling him, we don't have money for that. We just loaded up the cart for some unknown reason and we have no money for that. Is that what you're telling the court? If not, let me know. Your counsel wasn't there. I'm just trying to figure out if that's what you're telling me. If that's not what you're telling me, say, Judge, no, that's not what I'm telling you. I'm not going to take that as a sign of disrespect, okay? So, are you telling the court that you all loaded up a cart of items at Target? The 5-year-old is pushing the cart, and you're telling the 5-year-old, leave the cart there. We don't have any money for these items. And your intent was just to walk out. Is that what you're telling the court?
To walk out without the stuff, like to leave the stuff there.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Judge, with this testimony elicited from my client at this time, I think we need to ask the court to withdraw her plea.
All right, that'll be denied. All right, this is what the court is going to do. Court is going to find you guilty. Court is going to sentence you to 1 year in the state jail facility. Give you credit for any time served. Take in consideration GJ 812055, JN number 2127782. Showing you what's entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it?
Yes, I did.
Because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waive your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. Because this is a felony conviction, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons or ammunition. If you have a question over what a weapon or ammunition is, you'll need to speak to an attorney. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, we can go off the record. Good luck to you. Do not steal. Do not take what does not belong to you. And
A tense courtroom hearing begins as Miss Morales stands before the judge, facing yet another serious charge. For the court, this is not a new situation. According to the case records, Miss Morales already has multiple theft charges on her record, and this case marks her 6th time being accused of stealing. But what makes this situation especially disturbing is the way the alleged crime happened. Authorities say this time she didn't act alone. Instead, a very young child was involved in the incident, which immediately raised serious concerns for the court. The case centers around a shoplifting incident at a large retail store where employees began noticing unusual behavior inside the store. Staff members later reported that several items were placed into a shopping cart and pushed toward the exit without being paid for. At first, it may have looked like a normal shopping trip to anyone casually watching. But store security quickly realized something wasn't right. When the merchandise was later counted, the value of the stolen items added up to more than $500. That amount alone already makes the theft a serious criminal offense in many jurisdictions. However, what truly shocked investigators was who appeared to be pushing the cart filled with the unpaid items. A 5-year-old child. According to the details presented in court, The young child was seen pushing the shopping cart containing the stolen merchandise out of the store. Because of the child's age, the situation quickly became far more troubling than a typical shoplifting case. Prosecutors argued that the child likely had no understanding of what was happening and was unknowingly being used during the theft. When the case was brought into the courtroom, the judge immediately focused on the seriousness of the situation. The prosecutor began outlining the background of Miss Morales and her previous legal history. The court was informed that this was not her first encounter with theft charges. In fact, this incident was reportedly her sixth theft case. That detail alone immediately changed the tone of the hearing. Repeated offenses often signal to the court that previous punishments may not have been enough to change a person's behavior. Prosecutors emphasized that this pattern of theft could not be ignored. They argued that someone with so many prior offenses should face stronger consequences. But even with that history, the prosecution spent much of their time focusing on the most troubling detail: the involvement of a 5-year-old child. The state argued that allowing a young child to take part in a crime, even if the child didn't understand what was happening, was extremely serious. Children are supposed to be protected and guided by adults. Instead, prosecutors claimed the child had been placed directly in the middle of a criminal act. Because of this, the state requested a sentence of 1 year in a state jail facility. The defense team, however, had a very different perspective. They asked the judge to consider probation instead of jail time. According to the defense, Ms. Morales still deserved an opportunity to change her life and avoid spending time behind bars. To support their request, the defense presented something emotional to the court: a letter written by Ms. Morales' daughter. The letter was meant to show that her family still believed in her and hoped she could turn things around. For a moment, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Letters from family members can sometimes influence how a judge views a defendant. They show that someone still has support outside the courtroom and that people in their life believe they are capable of making better choices. But while the defense hoped the letter would soften the court's perspective, the judge still had many questions that needed answers. The judge began speaking directly to Ms. Morales. The questions started simple. The judge asked about the events that led up to the shoplifting incident. Why did it happen? What was she thinking at the time? And most importantly, why was a young child involved in the situation? As Ms. Morales began responding, the courtroom became noticeably quiet. Her answers attempted to explain the circumstances, but the judge seemed unconvinced. At times, her explanations appeared unclear or inconsistent. Instead of taking full responsibility, some of her responses seemed to shift blame or minimize what had happened. The judge listened carefully but began showing signs of growing frustration. Judges often pay close attention not only to what defendants say, but also to how they say it. Signs of genuine remorse or accountability can sometimes influence sentencing decisions. However, when a defendant appears to avoid responsibility, it can have the opposite effect. As the questioning continued, the judge returned again and again to the same issue: the involvement of the 5-year-old child. The judge explained that children depend entirely on the adults around them. They trust those adults to guide them and protect them from harm. When a child becomes involved in criminal activity, even unknowingly, it raises serious concerns about judgment and responsibility. The judge made it clear that this detail was deeply troubling. The courtroom remained silent as the judge spoke about the seriousness of using a child in this way. Even if the child didn't fully understand the situation, the act of involving them in a theft sends the wrong message and exposes them to behavior that could have long-term consequences. For the judge, this case was no longer just about stolen merchandise. It had become a question of responsibility. The defense tried once again to redirect the conversation back toward the possibility of probation. They argued that jail time might not be the best solution and asked the court to consider alternatives that would allow Ms. Morales to remain with her family. They emphasized that people can make mistakes and that sometimes individuals need support rather than punishment to change their lives. But the judge continued reviewing the facts of the case: 6 theft charges, a history of similar behavior, and now the involvement of a young child. All of these factors weighed heavily in the court's decision. At one point during the hearing, the defense even attempted to withdraw the plea, hoping it might change the direction of the case. But the judge denied that request, explaining that the court had already heard enough evidence to move forward with sentencing. As the hearing approached its conclusion, the tension in the courtroom grew stronger. Everyone waited to hear what the judge would decide. Sentencing decisions are never taken lightly, especially in cases where there is a history of repeated offenses. Judges must balance many factors, including the seriousness of the crime, the defendant's past behavior, and the potential impact on others involved. After carefully reviewing the case, the judge delivered the final ruling. Ms. Morales was found guilty. The judge then announced the sentence: 1 year in a state jail facility. While delivering the sentence, the judge made it clear that several factors contributed to the decision. The repeated theft charges demonstrated a pattern of behavior that the court could not ignore. But the involvement of the 5-year-old child made the situation significantly more serious. According to the judge, involving a child in criminal activity, even indirectly, crosses a line that the court must address firmly. The message from the court was clear. Adults have a responsibility to protect children and set the right example for them. When that responsibility is ignored, the consequences can be severe. With the sentence finalized, the case came to an end. For those watching the hearing, the decision served as a powerful reminder of how the justice system handles